Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the Uncanny X-Men published in 1983. Issue 167. In the Xavier Institute for Gifted Youngsters, Sam, Roberto, Rain, Danielle and Sean have gathered to watch some TV in the mansion's living room. They are all of them new students at the school, and together they are the New Mutants. They're all enjoying some soda and popcorn when suddenly the X-Men have come home. Cyclops, Colossus and Wolverine smash through the windows and walls as Nightcrawler teleports in. Both teams are all mutants being taught by Professor Xavier to hone their skills, but they are not familiar with one another. The X-Men had been abducted in deep space and were presumed to be dead. Sam, also known as Cannonball, immediately reacts and starts blasting and tells everyone to pick a target. He himself takes up the task of taking on the powerhouse Colossus. Even though he's near invulnerable when using his powers, he can feel the impact of him hitting Colossus' metal body with full power as they fly outside the mansion. Cyclops tried to warn Colossus, but he couldn't react in time. He then tells the rest of the kids to hit the floor, so they can be on their way to Xavier as fast as possible. He fires a warning shot from his optic blast. Kitty Pryde is carrying one of the Brood's weapons, and she's already a floor up in the mansion. She faces through the walls and makes her way to Xavier more directly and covertly. None of the kids downstairs know that she's there. Downstairs, Danielle, codenamed Psyche, uses her powers on Cyclops and shows him his biggest fear, namely having no control over his optic blast anymore and shooting uncontrollably wild around him. Rain, or Wolfsbane, transforms into her wolf form and attacks Nightcrawler. As Sunspot, real name Roberto da Costa, ends up in a fistfight with Wolverine. But Sunspot is no match for Wolverine's combat skills, let alone his adamantium-laced skeleton. He doesn't even need to take his claws out. After having dealt with Roberto, Wolverine makes his way upstairs, only to be stopped in his tracks by Karma, or Sean. She possesses Wolverine's body, or tries to, and as Sean notices, Wolverine's mind and willpower is not one to easily overrule. She is surprised by this because no human being before him has ever been able to pull that off. Upstairs, Kitty has almost arrived at Xavier's study. She wonders whether they're making the right decision and not jumping too much to conclusions, with their assumptions that the last one of the Brood Queen's eggs is implanted in Xavier's body. After all, they have no real proof, only Wolverine's suspicion and logic. She wonders whether the Brood's ambition to conquer the universe is the reason why the kids are here. And if Xavier, or the Brood inside him rather, has implanted them with the eggs as well. She sees Xavier sitting in his chair, seemingly human, but also asleep. She doesn't understand how that's even possible with all the noise from the fighting downstairs. She's somewhat surprised that all the thoughts rummaging through her head have not alarmed Xavier's mental powers yet. She calls out for him, and he tells her, with an eerie smile on his face, that she should have followed what Wolverine would have done and fired the gun she's holding. He then tells her that her hesitation will cost her dearly. She realizes what has happened and fires the gun at him. The sound of the gun is heard downstairs, and both Wolverine and Sunspot are alarmed. They try and make their way upstairs while ending up in a fight with one another. Sunspot manages to get a punch in, but Wolverine just grins at him and hits him back. Hard. In the meantime, Nightcrawler is trying to get Wolfsbane off of him, but just teleports out of there, appearing behind Psyche and Karma and slamming their heads against one another. The X-Men seem to be getting the upper hand, and at that moment, Kitty goes flying through the door, across the living room and falling flat on her back on the floor. Xavier in his wheelchair comes rolling through the door, greeting his X-Men, but he certainly doesn't look like himself. He tells them that they should not worry about Kitty any longer, she's beyond help. They should fear for themselves. While remaining in his chair, his body bends forwards, and the jacket of his suit tears open on the backside and wings pop out. Professor Xavier is transforming into a Brood before their eyes. Most of them have seen or experienced transformations like this before, but seeing this man change right in front of them leaves them speechless. The full transformation happens pretty fast, and the newborn Brood Queen mockingly asks them all if this form displeases them. It tells them that the disgust can be remedied by simply implanting them all with eggs again, or by death. Cyclops immediately attacks it and blasts the creature full blast outside of the mansion. Colossus sees the Brood Queen fly past him through the sky and figures he's too late. He runs towards the Brood, and while he does, he thinks about how young Cannonball actually looked. About the same age as Pyotr himself was when he joined the X-Men. When he's reached the impact point of where the Brood touched the ground again, the Brood Queen asks Colossus how he plans on stopping it, since he can read all its thoughts with the mental powers of Professor X. The X-Men, followed by the New Mutants, rush outside and run towards Colossus and the Brood Queen. Wolverine tells the kids, who are all surprised at Professor Xavier himself having changed into the same kind of creature they had fought before, to stay out of this and that the X-Men will handle this. That's when the New Mutants realize that these are the X-Men and they're not dead after all. The Brood Queen throws Colossus straight at Wolverine, as it tells them to flee if they want to remain alive. Wolverine tells the Brood that that's some nice advice. The same kind of advice he's been ignoring since the day he was born, he says, as he jumps out of the way. He jumps towards the Queen and extends the claws from his hands, aiming for her body, but suddenly he shifts mid-air and aims for the stingers and cuts them clean off. The Brood screams out and tells Wolverine how it will devour him for this, and attacks him with a Psy Blast. Karma realizes the enormous mistake they've made in attacking the ones that came to save them, and she tries to make amends by trying to possess the alien. She has tried this before and all she can sense is evil thoughts from an alien mind. She still can't handle this and her attack backfires on her again. The Brood Queen tries to fly away and escape, to find a place to recover from the injuries caused by Wolverine, but gets intercepted by Binary. Binary is being joined by Storm, who creates a blizzard to freeze the Queen to the bone, and is oriented by visually hampering its side and move it to where she wants it to be. She then tells the Queen that the rules for this battle have been laid out by itself, and that it will be to the death. Its death. It falls to the ground and the X-Men and New Mutants gather around it, making sure it's dead. Storm found that she couldn't push herself to finish it off, and Wolverine gladly volunteers to do the job. Cyclops holds him back, telling him it's his right and responsibility as the first X-Men to finish this, to kill the one Brood that's inhabited his teacher and surrogate father, Charles Xavier. With the Brood Queen having been assaulted physically, Xavier manages to gain the upper hand mentally and tells Scott that too much is at stake, that he must be killed. Wolverine tells Cyclops to do it, but Scott refuses. He's heard these kinds of pleas before, from the woman he loved only a couple of months ago. He could not stop her death back then, but won't allow the same thing to happen to Xavier. Not as long as there's hope. He asks everyone present if there are any objections. Storm says there aren't any, but Wolverine says there's lots. Later, aboard the Starjammer, which has been flying in Earth's orbit, Scott is becoming impatient, while Xavier is being taken care of in the sickbay, and he asks his dad if he's chasing rainbows. He in turn asks him if that really matters. The medical and surgical robot Sikorsky and Moira McTaggart both come outside of the sickbay bringing news. They sadly cannot reverse the physical transformation, but Sikorsky thinks that they might be able to clone Xavier's body from tissue samples collected when he was on board earlier, and transfer his mind from his old body into the new one. It's a long shot, but they might as well try. They don't really have a choice. Permission has been given and this procedure has already begun. In another part of the sickbay, Kitty is waking up from being unconscious, being watched over by Pyotr and Ilyana. She's happy to see them both and hugs them. Aurora, who's also been watching over Kitty, notices this and thinks about how she used to be the one getting a reaction from Kitty like this. But now all her focus is on her best friend and the man she thinks she loves. Aurora has been expecting a change like this, as it's an essential part of nature. Yet she cannot ignore the fact that it makes her feel alone. She notices in herself that she has been filling up the role of a parent for Kitty, even though she never had the right to assume such a position. She walks away and finds Kurt. She asks him if she's interrupting him in his thoughts. He flatters her and he gets a joyful response out of Storm. Something which seems to be coming easier than from the new younger mutants, but he's quite used to this with the way he looks. He understands that it's easier for people to see him from a distance than to truly accept him and, for example, share a meal with him. Storm tells him that Kitty had a hard time at first as well and has gotten over Kurt's looks. And so will these kids, given the time. Scott and Corsair are having a conversation while looking at the vastness of space ahead of them. Scott tells his dad about the influence and relationship he's had with Xavier over the years. Corsair tells Scott that he knows and that he envies Xavier's role in Scott's life, but how he's also thankful for Xavier's part in making Scott the man he is today. Something he can never repay the man. Scott asks what his plans are and if he will be staying on Earth. Corsair says that he will stay for a little while. There's people he wants to see after having been away for years, to catch up a bit. But therein lies the catch, because in those years he's been away for, life on Earth has changed a lot. It's no longer his place to be at. Scott asks him if he will take him along with him. Corsair tells him that if that's what he wants, he will gladly take his son along. He also offers Scott to meet his grandparents if he'd like that. Scott is surprised and gladly takes up the offer. They share a hug, right before they're interrupted by Raza, who tells them they have a guest. It's Gladiator, the head of the Imperial Guard of the Shi'ar Empire. Him and Corsair have a history with one another, with the Starjammers being regarded as pirates and outlaws to the Shi'ar Empire. Corsair inquires what his business here is, and Gladiator tells him that he demands an audience with Lilandra. Corsair tells Gladiator his place on the ship. This is not the place where he can demand anything. Here, he has to ask. Gladiator tries again, while being mocked by Raza and Mamselle Hepzibah. Lilandra is pondering about her relationship and her future with Charles, and about her place as the deposed Magistrix of the Shi'ar Empire, with her sister Deathbird having usurped the throne. As Gladiator approaches her, he's telling her that he has grave news. Her sister Deathbird is as mad as her brother was before her, but there's more he has to tell her. Gladiator tells her about the run-in he has had with the Fantastic Four. Apparently, the planet-devouring Galactus had come to Earth to die, but Gladiator tells Lilandra that Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four had a hand in restoring Galactus back to full health, and Galactus had gotten himself a new herald as well. Lilandra gets angry hearing this, and she shatters the glass that she had been holding in her hands. We then switch over to the Baxter Building, home of the Fantastic Four. As Reed and Sue Richards are lying in bed, a holographic projection pops up. It's Lilandra's image in her royal garments, informing the two that she's been made aware of Reed's crime. The Shi'ar Empire considers Galactus as the enemy of all that lives in the universe. That being destroys planets, filled with rare and precious resources, as well as planets capable of supporting life itself, and that in saving his life, the Fantastic Four have now branded themselves as allies of Galactus. And were he to consume a planet which is part of the Shi'ar Empire, they will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the Shi'ar law. At that moment, the Thing and the Human Torch, two other members of the Fantastic Four, enter the room since they heard Sue yell out, and Lilandra tells them to stay put. She tells everyone in the room that it's high time that the humans learn their place in the universe and that they're not alone. They too have a responsibility that reaches further than their own solar system. And with this warning, she's gone. As Lilandra steps out of the holosystem which projected her image, she's aware that the threats are not backed by her current role in the Shi'ar Empire. She's currently just a mere Shadow Princess, a woman without a world. At that moment, Piotr, Kitty, Ilyana and Mora exit the sickbay, and they bring the professor along, fully recovered in his newly cloned body. A procedure which also regained him the use of his legs, something which he has not had the pleasure of for years, ever since his legs had been crushed. Mora warns him to take it easy as he's standing up. For the first time in 15 years, he's delighted to tell everyone that he's once again a whole man. But he immediately collapses in pain. Lilandra and Mora both aid him to get back to the Hoover chair. Lilandra asks worriedly if the procedure didn't go as well as everyone had thought, but Charles explains that he's always used his powers to block the pain out. The nerves in his legs had been heavily traumatized and the continuous pain would have consumed him. There's apparently now a psychosomatic residue that does not allow him to walk, even though physically he should be able to. Mora tells him that that's something that he should be able to overcome, given the patience, proper exercise and training. Lilandra and Mora agree to take turns in giving Charles a proper motivation. Back to business, Charles lets everyone present know that he's made some decisions over the past weeks. He's happy for this moment. To see those he had thought lost to him, alive and well, as well as the new students of the school, all together, all under the same roof. He apologizes for how their initial meeting went and hopes they will all become friends. He then tells everyone that Kitty, now having children around her own age in the school, will no longer be an X-Men. With everyone shocked at this news, he says he thinks it's been a mistake to allow her, at her young age, to do battle along with the X-Men against evil mutants. She will now no longer be an X-Men, but she will join the New Mutants instead. And his decision is final. Thanks for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, because that will help me out in growing this channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. See you next episode.